Today, we're talking about Super Bowl LVIII, Israel's plan to invade Rafah, a historic stock market milestone, and other top news for Monday, February 12th. Stay informed while remaining focused on Christ with the pour over today. Here's the verse of the week. Sanctify them in the truth. Your word is truth. John 17:17. Let's get started with some espresso shots. Congratulations to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs on winning Super Bowl LVIII. The Chiefs beat the San Francisco 49ers 25-22 with a thrilling walk-off touchdown in overtime. QB Patrick Mahomes won his third Super Bowl MVP, tying Joe Montana and trailing only Tom Brady, who has 5. The Chiefs are running out of room for all their rings. Last night was their third Super Bowl win in 5 seasons and the first time a team has won back-to-back since the Patriots in the 2003 season. No team has ever won 3 in a row. Meanwhile, the game's $7 million commercial slots were filled with celebs. Arnold Schwarzenegger starred as Agent State Farm, Lionel Messi and Ted Lasso teamed up to sell beer, Jennifer Aniston used Uber Eats, Chris Pratt ate Pringles, and of course, the Clydesdales and the dog melted hearts. There were an uptick in female-focused commercials, including ELF Cosmetics and Dove, attributed in part to the Taylor Swift effect, who, yes, made it back from her concert in Tokyo in time to watch her boyfriend Travis Kelce play. Usher went old school with his halftime performance, bringing out a marching band and roller skates. He was joined by guests Alicia Keys, Her, Ludacris, Lil Jon, and will.i.am. Americans embraced the host city's reputation. It's estimated that 68 million people wagered $23 billion on the big game, up from $16 billion last year. Too often do we let eternally insignificant things like sports control our mood and behavior. It's not wrong to enjoy these things, but remember that whether your team wins or loses, nothing of true importance has changed. Psalm 19:14 says, "May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, Lord, my rock and my redeemer." Israel says victory is in reach, but there are serious concerns about the lives it will cost. Over the weekend, Prime Minister Netanyahu announced Israel's plan to evacuate, then invade Rafah, a town in southern Gaza housing 4 Hamas battalions and 1.5 million refugees, mostly sheltered in tents around the city. Critics and allies alike are sounding the alarm. The U.S. says the ground invasion will be a disaster. The UN warns there's nowhere safe for civilians to go, and Hamas says it will blow up hostage release negotiations. Israel's military also announced that recent raids on Hamas facilities killed 120 terrorists and discovered significant assets and weapons, including some inside the United Nations-affiliated relief building. Israel says this confirms the agency's terrorist activities. The agency's commissioner said they abandoned the building back in October. The darkness in the world around us can weigh heavily on our hearts, but believers have hope because Emmanuel is present with us, and our living God has removed the sting of death so that it's powerless against those who love him. 1 Corinthians 15:54-58 says, "Death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is your sting? The sting of death is sin, and the power of sin is the law. But thanks be to God, who gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Therefore, my beloved brothers, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord."
What would you do if you were falsely accused of murder? For Hannah Overton, that question isn't hypothetical. Hannah was a regular mom of 4 in Texas when, out of the blue, she was falsely accused of murder. Hannah was shocked by the lies, and as a firm believer, she knew that God would come to her rescue and never let those rumors spread. But the exact opposite happened. Hannah eventually stood before a jury of her peers and heard them sentence her to life in prison. This was a terrible mistake. How could God have let her down? But Hannah would soon discover that God had a plan all of his own. Listen to Hannah's entire story on episode number 16 on the Compelled podcast, titled "Falsely Accused of Murder and Sentenced to Life in Prison." Listen on your podcast app or at compelledpodcast.com.
In other brews, here's a rapid round of updates. The S&P 500 closed above 5,000 points for the first time in history on Friday, a flex from the economy that keeps defying a recession. Microsoft also passed a symbolic milestone, closing the week with a market cap of $3.124 trillion, making it the most valuable company ever. The previous record of $3.09 trillion was set by Apple in July. The CEO of a major Nigerian bank, along with his wife and son, were among 6 killed in a helicopter crash in the Mojave Desert, California, on Friday. Nigeria's president, Ahmed Tinubu, called the deaths an overwhelming tragedy. In another aviation tragedy, 2 people were killed when a small plane attempted an emergency landing on Interstate 75 near Naples, Florida. The Wall Street Journal reported that OpenAI's CEO, Sam Altman, is looking to raise $5 to $7 trillion to overhaul the semiconductor industry. With the rise of AI, chips are in high demand, but raising trillions is audacious by any standard. If successful, it'd be the most valuable company in the world by far, and dwarf most countries. Larry Hogan, the former Republican governor of Maryland, is running for U.S. Senate. He announced a surprise bid to replace retiring Senator Ben Cardin on Friday. It's a big move. Hogan earned high approval ratings during his 2 terms as governor, but the blue state hasn't elected a red senator since 1980. President Biden took the podium after a report by special counsel Robert Hur described his memory as significantly limited. Biden lashed out against the claim that he misremembered when his son Beau died, before fueling more criticism by confusing the presidents of Mexico and Egypt. Polls show 86% of Americans believe Biden is too old to be president. 62% say the same for Trump. And that's all we have for today. Thanks so much for listening. If you're listening on the Apple Podcasts app, give us a 5-star rating and drop a review. If you're listening on the Spotify app, give us a follow and hit the notification bell to never miss a new episode. We appreciate your support and hope you have a great day. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Most social media sells your data, peppers you with ads, and curates divisive content. Not Tuvu. Tuvu is wholesome social media built and moderated with the whole family in mind. Choose social media that uplifts rather than drains. Check out Tuvu, that's Tuvu, at the link in our show notes.